Welcome to the first in our new series Manx Radio Replay, dipping into the archives of some of our best loved series from over 6 decades of broadcasting. Last weekend, Knockalo in Patrick played host to another successful Royal Manx show with livestock, local produce, stunt shows and many a vintage tractor. In this special replay of the programme, Days Gone By, much-missed presenter and former stalwart of both the Royal and Southern shows, John Kennaugh, takes a nostalgic look back at some of the machinery which was in use on Manx farms in the first half of the 20th century. With the help of members of the Southern Vintage Engine and Tractor Club, this programme was broadcast in 2005.
Farming on the Isle of Man has always been an integral part of the Manx community, and the introduction of the tractor in the 1930s revolutionised the industry. Many of us who have been associated with the land all our lives have a strong affiliation with the tools of our industry, and there's nothing more nostalgic than a vintage tractor. Or the very smell of that paraffin engine as it just rocks to a stop after a hard day's work is nostalgia at its purest. If you've been to either of the agricultural shows over the past few years, you'll have seen a magnificent display of engines and farming machinery from the first half of the 20th century. And the people who put on these displays and demonstrations are the members of the Southern Vintage Engine and Tractor Club. Ori Mitchell is the current chairman.
Well, it was formed by various existing members. I think there's 4 or 5 existing members who formed it 21, 22 years ago. Again, the modern phrase is like-minded people interested in farm machinery, tractors, stationary engines, and just came together wanting to do something, restore them, show them. And the club has gone from strength to strength. I think it's something that gets into your blood, or we're reliving our childhood again. Especially myself, I always remember the sound of the field marshals towing the thrashing tackle along the roads, and in those days there was no other cars or vehicles on the road, and so the sound of the single cylinder field marshal just echoed, and you could hear it moving from farm to farm in darkness. They tried to finish either before darkness fell or even finishing with a hurricane lamp. And then the 2 men with the crew would move a thrashing tackle from one farm to another, ready to start the next morning, with the aid basically of a hurricane lamp, trying to get into farmyards, get it all lined up. They had it off to an art. There's also part of our heritage as well, sort of thing. But basically, most of us nostalgic. There's like the gentleman who's got his small tractor belted to my baler there. John remembers the first time he went baling, the same sort of setup. So he just recreated the same setup sort of thing. But also, I think it's part of the heritage, and again, not just the British heritage, but Manx heritage as well, that a lot of things changed in our generation. The grey Fergies changed the style of farming after the war. Everyone was so used to horses, the grey Fergies took over. And most of us remember that era. 1 or 2 of our members, they'll clout me, but they remember even a bit further back. And things have changed. Even tractors now are computerised. Nostalgia and reliving our childhood.
Ori Mitchell. The club was established many moons ago, and one of the founding members was John Kennaugh, who, even though he's in his 80th year, is still as busy as ever.
I've been associated with tractors and farming all my life, and as regards this binder, I salvaged this year from Mr. Hampton Creer. It has been in a shed, and that big storm in January, the roof went off the shed, so I got informed it was there, and if somebody didn't take it and salvage it, it was going to the scrapyard. And in my opinion, it's such a shame to let things of the sort go to the scrapyard, because there's so many said to me today, what is it? I have no idea what it was. And so it's nice to be able to tell some of the younger generation exactly what it done. unfortunately we can't give a working demonstration of it, but it's as much as we can do to have it running. And so it's, to my knowledge, it hasn't actually been used in Angus since 1954, because Hampton's father bought it in 1954 second hand at a farm sale in Kirkmichael, and they never used it after they got it, so I assume it was used harvest 1954, but certainly hasn't been used since. Well, it's a binder. It's what we cut the corn with prior to combine harvesters, and of course it was very labour intensive, because you would, on a good day, you would cut a field of this size. There's 13 acres in this field, and you could quite comfortably, everything going well, you would cut it. But that was the easy part, the cutting of it. It all had to be stooked after that. Then it had to stand in the stook. The sheaves had to stand in the stook, and the church bells ring over 3 times. Believe it or not, it had to have three Sundays in the field, and then it was seasoned enough then to stack it and store it. And it would be stored and thrashed later on, because there wasn't the grain towers and things about at that time. So it was each farm, the thrashing machine travelled around from farm to farm, and you'd done a bit of thrashing, a day's thrashing this place, and you'd done a day's next. Well, and it was taking a crew of somewhere in the regions of 14 or 15 men to keep a thrashing machine going ding-dong like, and because the grain had to be taken away after it was thrashed, and the straw had to be packed away. But that's what I say, it used to take on an average about 14 men. I've been driving tractors since I was, 10, 11 year old. And I started off at harvest time. There's only one pedal on those. Your clutch and brake is all in the one. And it's that heavy, I used to have to stand on it with both feet and let my whole body up when I was, and for the time they'd get the 10 sheaves up, your legs would be aching, just ready to take the weight off for a split second while you moved along to the next. But it was all good fun when we were kids, and I think that's it's born in there, and that's always told. Like, I've got a grandson now that he's more interested. He's interested enough in the tractors, but I don't think he ever will be to the stage that I've been all my life. I hope that I live long enough to get him on the tractor ploughing or ploughing match just the same, like, so keep my fingers crossed and touch a bit of wood. Hope for the best.
Of course, every tractor has its own story, as Mickey Rubens explains.
You go scratching it in the briars and you have a look at it, then you find the owner, see is he prepared to sell it, or hopefully give it to you, because they're worth bugger all in that state, but they're usually wanting something for them, and I always like to give something, even if it's only £1, because then I don't owe him a favour. He's been paid and that's the end of it. You know, he can't come back and want 40 hours work doing on his house or something like that. I won't be caught out like that. I like to buy it and then I know it's mine. I actually bought an old petrol paraffin Fords and Major off the same farm, off Tom Kinraid, and I gave him the £40, and he thought it was crackers. And a week later, I got Qualters Timber Yard in Castletown. They went out with the wagon and high-ab and lifted it out and onto the wagon and brought it home. And it sat on the patio at the back of the house in Colby. And I was busy tinkering with it, knocking rust off it. And I decided to fill the gearbox and engine up with red diesel to try and loosen everything up. Well, the diesel was seeping out of all the oil seals onto the ground, and the wife got very annoyed with this because it was getting on her shoes and the smell of diesel in the house, and she was struggling past it with the washing basket, and she got a bit violent about it and threatened to smash the damn thing up with a sledgehammer if I didn't get it shifted. So I had to get Qualters Timber Yard back, and they put it back on the wagon and backed further up the railway track where I live, and they swung it in over the hedge, and I plonked it at the top of the garden, and that's where it stayed. And I built a shed round it and rebuilt the tractor, and I showed it for about 8 to 10 years. Sorry I sold it. It's out at Baldrain. Probably never get it back. It's been in 3 World Tractor magazines. That tractor was a very early 1945 model. And I had a lot of fun, but I sold it on, got bored with it. And as you do, you move on and buy another tractor. But at least I saved it. It would have been in the scrapyard. And actually, that's a lot of why I buy these things. Because I think, well, next step is the scrapyard, and then it's gone. So you get it as cheap as you can. Do it up as cheap as you can. Because you feel it's all dead money, it's all dead. But once it's finished, it comes to life. It's not dead money. Just recently had a chap offer me a lot of money for the Nuffield, which I never thought I'd get here. But seeing in Manx, I won't sell them to the mainland. We've lost a lot of tractors over the past 3 years. A lot of tractors with a lot of Manx history been here from new, and they've gone on low loaders and sold to the British market. What can you do? Because there's tractors here that they would only get £2,000 for, where they can get £5,000 in England for, and that's where they've been going. It's a shame. Like, I've seen chaps, they've come along, they've got interested in vintage tractors, they've run round, scurried round, found a couple of nice tractors, Manx history, been here working on farms, various farms for 40, 50 years, these tractors, and next thing these people get fed up, get bored, lose interest, get in touch with a dealer on the mainland, and put on a low loader and shipped off. Well, this tractor's called a Ferguson 35. It come out before the red and grey one. It's opposite. It's a 1956 model, and we believe the first owner was Eddie Qualtrough, Cronkmoor Farm at Gansey, called Shore Road. Eddie Qualtrough, Cronkmoor. And like I say, it's a 1956 tractor. And the trailer belonged to Russian Abbey Gardens, this original Ferguson trailer. It's the only one on the island. They're very, very scarce. The scarcest hen's teeth, actually. You'll have a job to find another, because they all rotted away. But that one has been saved and restored. I've had to put a new body on it. This tractor I've rebuilt over the past 12 months. It'll be the last one for a while, because it's rather expensive and very time consuming doing them up. I have another 2 tractors, but I haven't bothered to bring them here today. A Super Dexter, Fords and Super Dexter, and a Nuffield. The Nuffield has a lot of Manx history. That come from St Mark's. A fella called Bobby Kelly from Ballacriink, I think it's Ballacriink. And that one's at home. Well, I've had to rebuild the whole engine because it was badly worn and wouldn't run properly. I've had to rebuild it, new big ends, shells put in it, new piston rings, new timing chain in the front of it, new toolbox because that had rotted away, tyres, all these injector pipes have had to be replaced because it was in a very rough state. It was left in the corner of a farm, small holding, with a canvas sheet through over it, and the water was getting through the canvas sheet and holding the damp into it. It would have been better just left out in the open. So it's took a fair bit of time and money, this. So I'm not going to bother doing any more for a while. I've restored a lot of tractors in the past 25 years. They've all still on the island. I keep moving them on, and somebody offers me a bit of profit in it, and I let it go, and then I always regret that I've sold it, because you can never get them back. Once it's gone, you can never get it back. Either the chap just doesn't want to sell it back. So you got to really think hard before you let it go, because you know it just doesn't come back.
You're listening to a Manx Radio replay of the programme Days Gone By, with presenter John Kennaugh and members of the Southern Vintage Engine and Tractor Club.
Over the years, the health and safety regulations in the British Isles have changed so much that some of the older machinery just wouldn't be allowed to take to the field. Here's Ori Mitchell again.
A machine like this would never be allowed to come out of the factory. There were accidents on farms, but there were the basic health and safety quite a few of these ended up with guards round the flywheels, but unfortunately you can't really put a guard around the endless belt driven from whatever is a tractor or a stationary engine. This day and age, to try and make it safe, there's only 3 of us go in there to work it, and 3 of us are competent at our jobs of doing what we're doing. And again, we've changed the aspect to the public, but it doesn't stop them from seeing what's going on. We've now got this orange fencing round to keep the public away, because none of us want to see an accident on here. But again, as I say, this machine would never come out of the factory as it is, because it's just totally not disregards the health and safety, but in those days the operators were aware of any accidents, but everyone was made aware of what was happening. They knew they were working with a machine that could be dangerous. Any machine, even with all the guards on, can still be dangerous if you misuse it. But it's thanks to the likes of John Crane, who's on the field here today, and others away that I've worked with, that they've made me aware of the dangers of these machines, and you learn to respect them.
And the one sound that will bring back a lot of memories for many, many people in the Isle of Man is the Field Marshal.
Right, it's a bit complicated, well, not complicated to start it, but it's a little bit time consuming. It's not just a case of turning a key. This tractor is a single-cylinder 2-stroke diesel engine, and it started with rather a large starting handle in the flywheel on the side there, but prior to that we have to set it up ready for starting, and part of that process is to put an ignition paper in this holder on the cylinder head. So I've just got to get a paper prepared for that and set the tractor up for starting. Basically a piece of blotting paper which is soaked in a couple of chemicals, one of which is saltpeter. It doesn't actually burn as such with a flame. The paper just glows, and it just gives sufficient heat to vaporize the fuel oil when it first goes into the cylinder. The flywheel, there are marks to set up there to get the piston in the correct position for starting. Set the decompression wheel. The ignition paper has been lit, glowing red, put back into the cylinder head. Now it's just a case of swinging it over briskly, and hopefully it'll start. Field Marshal, it was made by Marshalls of Gainsborough in Lincoln, and Marshalls made steam engines to start with, and they developed this Marshall, the Field Marshal tractor for agricultural work. They also made other Marshall products as well, Marshall road rollers for example. But this tractor is a bit unique in that it was developed as a diesel engine tractor when other manufacturers were progressing with petrol and paraffin. So it was an early diesel tractor. This particular one is 58 years old. It's in original condition. It's a contractor's model, which means that it was used to be used in conjunction with a threshing mill. Basically, it has some extras such as a lighting set on it. It has one headlight, a couple of side lights, and a rear light, so it could be used on the road at night. And it has a winch on the back of it, which was used to assist the mill getting in and out of the hacket on the farmyard. Basically, these two tractors, these two Field Marshals, are sort of in original condition, so they just need sort of looking after on a day-to-day basis, just general maintenance really, like you'd do with any engine. They are restored. Some people restore them from just absolute heaps of rust. There's a cost element to it and also a time factor, but if you've got the money and the time, anything's possible. All of the parts for this tractor are still available today. There's a company in Lincoln called Crawford's who were the agents for Marshalls when these were made. Crawfords are still going strong today, and they can obtain just about any part for it still, say, sort of 60 years hence. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Can't say that about many modern tractors when companies are buying each other out so often. And the parts are made from the original drawings. Crawfords have a wealth of knowledge about the tractor because they've been brought up with it as well. Sad to say that the Gainsborough factory of Marshalls was pulled down last year, but the main gates have been kept. Probably a lot of the tractors here have a lot more value in sentimental terms than they do in actual financial terms. There's a lot of love, sweat gone into restoring them. Yes, parts aren't cheap either. A lot of the parts for the vintage tractors are made by specialist companies, but some of the more common tractors, there is a bigger market out there for the spare parts, so there is a bit of competition in the spare parts market. The likes of the Marshall tractor here, there is only really the one supplier of the spare parts, so they tend to be a bit pricey. Most of the lads here today are just ordinary lads, family men, but they tinker away in their sheds or garages and restore these tractors, with basic sort of hand tools and small equipment. The Southern Vintage Engine and Tractor Club have monthly meetings, and part of the excitement and fun of the club meeting is reminiscing. Lots of the guys talk about how it used to be when they were using these for real on the farm, and even before this with horses, of course. And some of the tales that come out are entertaining, and well, they're stories that can't be repeated as generations pass by. It's good to have that knowledge and their experience passed on.
Keith Watterson. The process of restoring a tractor to its former glory can take months, even years to complete, especially after years of neglect. And it's not only hard work, it takes a lot of love and care as well. So, what motivates people to spend hours, days, weeks and months lovingly restoring these engines?
Well, I got bored with going fishing. And I suppose I was looking for a bit of a hobby, and one day I went to the Southern Agricultural Show, and there was these chaps with old stationary engines. And I says, oh, I've got an engine like that at home. I said, it come out of our cement mixer. And this chap says, well, why don't you paint it up and bring it along and join the club? So I did. I got the engine running again, all painted up as petrol paraffin engine with a magneto on it for sparks. Made a little trolley for it and brought it along. Then I found a bigger trolley out of a three-wheeler car chassis, so I had an old turnip cutter sat on the lower part with a belt, and this engine driving the turnip cutter through a belt. And then it progressed to more engines, and then I got fed up with them and I sold a lot for 800 quid and went to Turkey for a fortnight on the proceeds. And then I started to get involved with tractors because I was brought up on a farm. My father was a farm labourer all his life.
Keeps me occupied, keeps me out of mischief. This, I don't know, it's just one of them things. You've either got the notion to do it or you haven't got the notion to do it. It can be damned expensive, like when you start buying parts, but if I had to have bought new canvases for that, I repaired two of them, and I actually made one out of a sheet of canvas because I was fortunate enough to have the rivets, and I got a joiner to cut the wooden lats, and I made that canvas, but they tell me they're about £150 a piece to buy them, so, and there's 3 on there, so it's, and I'm only a pensioner, been a farm worker more or less all my life, so I haven't got a big lot of money behind me to go to spend on the likes of that, so you improvise.
Some of them come readily available. Someone will say, oh, I've got a tractor in the backyard, do you know anyone who wants it? Or either you see it for sale or word of mouth. There are others still around, but no, when it comes to restoring them, again, it's become big business because there's a lot of manufacturers or dealers out there, not on the island but off island, who will supply materials or parts And again, some of the small parts for the field marshal I can fax to a dealer in Lincolnshire today, and small parts I'll have in the post the next dinner time. They'll turn up. So and again, most parts can be got now because there's other people fabricating, not the genuine parts, but they are fabricating replacement parts.
Depends on the condition when you buy it. Some you can end up spending £2,000, and others you may get away with 500 quid. You may just want a set of tyres and a little bit of tinkering. You don't value your time, but it can be very expensive. Lots of these machines are done up over a period of about 3 or 4 years to spread the cost. The beauty about tractors, they don't rust. I had a lovely Volvo sports car, but I was always spending money on it. Every year, all the time, it was going rusty, and you're buying panels or having to repaint it. Or you spend an awful lot of money. I'd never ever have another classic car. But a tractor will stand up to the weather. There's better metal, obviously, in them. And once you've done them up, usually that's it. It doesn't need anything more doing to it, other than maybe in 5 years' time give it another coat of paint, which you're not too fussy with a tractor, are you? You know, most of them, of course, they paint their own, and they look really good enough, you know.
Well, technology in the farming industry has come on leaps and bounds over the course of the last century. But although we're grateful for the latest modern technology, and indeed at times it seems we couldn't live without it, sometimes it's nice to look back fondly.
Many thanks to John Kennaugh and all of his guests there. We'll be back after the Bank Holiday Monday with another Manx Radio replay for you on Monday, September the 2nd. In the meantime, for more fabulous content from our Manx Radio archive, don't miss the new series of The Archive Room, which starts this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Thanks for listening.